Hello and welcome to The Thrifty Author. I'm your host, Gail Z, and today I want to talk about being a good podcast guest or a good panelist. As, uh, as you may find when your book comes out, people get to hear about your book, especially if you write romance or sci-fi or fantasy, one of the genres. And there are online, for now, conventions. Once we can finally go back to something close to normal, there will be physical conventions again, which of course have panels talking about different topics. And throughout all of this, there are podcasters, both video and audio, who do interview shows with authors and other creators. So how do you make the most of these opportunities? And what's the etiquette? What are the rules? What are you supposed to do? What are you not supposed to do? Surprisingly enough, even when it's the first time being asked to be a guest or a panelist, very few places actually hand out a rule sheet or an expectations sheet. So unless you've watched a lot of these, it can be difficult to know what works and what doesn't. So let me give you a few ideas from having done literally hundreds of both of these over more than a decade, about a decade and a half at this point. So let's talk about being a good panelist. It helps if you have an idea of who the other people are that you'll be on the panel with. Not only does that give you some idea of how much you have in common and where you might have differences of opinion, but it also gives you an idea of, if you've got somebody on the panel who has been writing for 30 years or is the guest of honor at the convention, you probably don't want to get in a knockdown, drag out argument with them. You really shouldn't be getting in a knockdown, drag out argument with anybody. But it does help, especially, it's a big field. We can't know everybody. You want to be polite and courteous to everybody, no matter how long they've been writing or how famous they are. But it does help to know if you're sitting next to Mr. Super Bestseller and they give an opinion and you're on your first book, probably not good to contradict them. You may not have the mileage under your belt to have that body of knowledge, and it's just not going to come off well. You also want to have some ideas about what you might like to say if you're, in the course of the conversation. You should have a good idea of what the topic is for the panel. But what can you contribute? What can you say that maybe other people can't, or that comes from a distinctive perspective? Whatever you say, make it short. Think about sound bites. Sound bites should be no more than, maybe 30 seconds long. Those are the things we see on TV where they just do a clip of somebody saying something. Certainly know that no longer than a minute. A minute can take forever, especially on a panel or on a podcast. Think in advance of what you want to say. Don't ramble. Don't hold the floor while you get your thoughts together. Have your thoughts already collected before you speak up, ask to speak, so that you can go without a long preamble. You want to get to the point, make your point, and then be quiet so that other people can react and we can move on to the next panelist. There's nothing worse on a panel than somebody who just won't stop talking. And it's discourteous to your other panelist, to the other panel members, doesn't make you come off well. And honestly, nobody is that interesting, not even the guest of honor. So it's just bad etiquette. So you want to say what you came to say, and then be quiet so other people can talk as well, because everybody's there to get their 2 cents in. I think one of the other things as a panelist that you really don't want to do is lead off every time you respond to a question with, well, in my books. Not good. Bad etiquette, and it's kind of the sign of a newbie or somebody who doesn't have a lot of personal skills. You don't want to, yes, of course, all of us are up there because we hope people will like us and follow us and buy our books, but you don't have to beat people over the head with that. And so think of examples from other people's books. Think of examples from classic books or movies that you've read or seen. Shine some light on other people. Don't always look like you're trying to yank the spotlight back to be pointing at you. So if it is really, really essential to the point being discussed, then you can say, you know, the way I handled that in XYZ series was this, and make it short. And don't bring it up on every question. Sometimes it really is important, depending on the theme of the panel. But if you find yourself referring to your own books every single point, you're probably overdoing it. Once in a panel is good, not all the time, and don't lead with it. So those are some tips for being a good panelist. And of course, you want to greet the other panelists, say hello, be friendly, be personable. These are people, this is how we get to know each other as writers. I can't tell you how many authors I met because we were on a panel together who had been complete strangers to me. And after warming up to each other and playing off each other well on a panel, it was perfectly natural to come up to them in the bar or at dinner and extend the conversation. And some of those have now turned out to be not only good business partners, but great friends. So be aware that there is a bigger prize here than just how much you get to talk on the panel. And if you find that you're really playing off somebody very well and you just seem to have the same sense of humor, or you seem to work well together, make sure you follow up on that. Don't be afraid to approach the other person when you see them someplace where they're not busy and say, hey, I really enjoyed being on that panel with you. Tell me more about what you write. It's a great way to potentially build a terrific friendship. Now, a lot of those rules still apply if you're on a podcast, and that can be a video podcast or an audio podcast. You want to really listen to the question that's being asked and answer it concisely so that you're not rambling. It's okay to take a couple of seconds to get your thoughts together. That's better than rambling around the point while you think about what you want to say. Especially on video and audio. You know, think about when you listen to a podcast or you watch somebody on TV, you're going to judge that person by how well spoken they are, how well they make their point without going on and on about it. So you want to be that person who is well spoken and makes their point and is gracious and polite and thanks the podcast or the interviewer for having you on the show. Thank them at the beginning, thank them at the end. They're really doing you a big favor. Don't grab the spotlight, let them shine it on you. So don't be quick to drag your books into the conversation. Yes, we all know you're an author. That's why you're invited to the podcast. The podcast will probably have your bio up and maybe even a list of your books. Let the interviewer bring up, well, tell us about your books. What's your newest book? What do you write? Why do you write that? That's going to be in their list. If you jump into that on your own, you're going to mess up the interviewer's list of questions. They're not going to love you for that. And you're going to look like, again, you're trying to grab too much of the spotlight. They'll get to you. They really will. And even if the podcast doesn't dwell on your books, and many people don't, many times podcasts want to talk to you as a person and mention your books maybe at the end, maybe as a side note. It's getting to know the author. Be open to that. Be willing to that. Be willing to do that. It's not a commercial. It's not a sales opportunity. And you're really showing disrespect to the podcaster or the interviewer if you make it into that. They are showing interest in you. So think about what is interesting about you. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not writing? What are some of your interests in the world? Where have you traveled? Where would you like to travel? What do you like to read? If you haven't really thought about those and how you could share those in a conversation, now's a good time to do it. Even if you need to give yourself a list to remind yourself, oh yeah, I really want to mention that I love bird watching or whatever. That's perfectly fine. But a lot of interviewers really want to lead with getting to know you. People can look your books up anywhere, but this is the chance to actually feel like they've had a conversation with you. And how would you like to have a conversation with someone who can't stop talking about themselves and what they do and what they really hope you'll buy from them? Not cool. So what are the best things to keep in mind? try to relax, be as genuine as you can while not being a jerk. If your genuine self is kind of a jerk, then don't be that genuine. Put your best foot forward. I have seen authors on panels and decided after I saw the way they interacted with other people or the way they interacted with the people in the audience that I was never going to buy another book from them again. At the same time, I've seen authors on panels that I had heard about but wasn't in a big hurry to read, and I fell so in love with them on the panel, loved what they said and loved how they came across, that I bumped them up to the top of my to be read pile or went out and bought their book. So this is really a chance for you to make a terrific impression, hopefully a good one. So be your best self. Try to be as relaxed as possible. Be as genuine as possible. We're not asking you to spill your guts or your family secrets, but don't answer in one word, yes, no. That's a terrible interview. Short sentences are great. And keep it as a conversation. You should be lobbing the conversational ball back and forth between you and the interviewer so that this feels natural and you both have a good time. Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to be the big sophisticated author. Just be you. That's all we want. We just want to get to know you. And the more you can show us how likable you are and how interesting, the more inclined we'll be to want to learn more about you and your books. So some tips going into the new year for being a good guest on a podcast or a panel. I hope the new year brings you plenty of opportunities to practice, and really it does get better with practice. So that's it for now. I will see you online, but there's a lot more Thrifty Author tips coming in the new year. Thanks for joining us.